Throughout time, roller coasters have come and gone. Only some become legends for their intensity and thrills. Each and every year, coaster fans like you venture to the parks, searching for that one special ride that stands out above the rest. You submitted your rankings, and now it's time to reveal the group of elite roller coasters that you have voted as the best of the best. COASTER-net Uncut proudly presents the 2015 Thrilling 32.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of COASTER-net Uncut. I am Danny Miller from Rochester, New York, alongside Andy Barczyk from Chicago, Illinois. We're going to talk about some wooden roller coasters tonight, Andy. It's the wooden coaster version of the 2015 COASTER-net.com Thrilling 32 Bracket Challenge. We did the steel ones. We just got done recording that one. As you'll notice, if you've watched that one already, we're wearing the same T-shirts. We're getting these to you guys at the same time here. We split it up into two shows, so it's a little easier for you guys to watch. So we're going to talk about the wooden coasters now. What do you think, Andy? We're going to have some good matchups tonight, huh?
I'm excited because I really love a few wood coasters. I'm not a huge wood coaster fan. So this bracket was, on the one hand, a little more difficult for me to choose. But, for the most part, I think that the collection of 32 that we have here are pretty good wood coasters. That they are the best of the best, as they say. So some of the matchups I found to be a little bit easier in the wood bracket to choose for me. But who knows if that's going to be the right choice, too. Because I know what I like, but what I like in wood coasters is not necessarily what everyone else likes in wood coasters. So I'm interested to see how my tastes match up with everyone else's.
Well, right, and like we discussed before we went on the air, I think the difference here with the wood coasters and some of your good parks, you have 4 or 5, maybe even 6 really good steel roller coasters, like a Cedar Point or a Six Flags Great Adventure. You have a lot of coasters that could possibly make a contest like this. Whereas with the wood coasters, you only have 1 or 2, maybe 3, 4 in rare instances wood coasters in a park. So the odds of more than 1 or 2 of those being really good is slim to none. And like you said, you kind of admit that you're not as much of a wood coaster person. I think I prefer wood coasters slightly in general, but you're not quite as in tune with the rest of the coaster community, I guess, on the wooden coaster front. There's a lot of ones that maybe you're not as much of a fan of that other people are. So this one, I could see how maybe this one was a bit more difficult, but also I could see how it might be a little easier for you. So are you ready to jump into it here?
Oh, for sure. Let's do it.
All right. Well, we're going to start off with your hometown region here, the Riverview Park region, and we're starting with Viper from Six Flags Great America, which I believe was built in-house. It
Yep.
really wasn't contracted out to a major corporation, against the new kid on the block, Goliath, also at Six Flags Great America. The battle of the Windy City, as I've been calling it here. The old school favorite against the new kid on the block from Rocky Mountain Construction. One of the first wooden roller coasters to successfully go upside down here. We got it. And it's the new kid on the block, Goliath, taking the victory in the first round. So, we talked about this during the selection show. You talked about how you do prefer Goliath to Viper. And as of right now, I have not been on Goliath yet. I have been on Viper, and Viper is one that that I am a real big fan of. And I'm excited to get to compare the two. But Goliath taking the win here in your home park.
Well, on the one hand, I'm kind of surprised because I know a lot of people struggled to ride Goliath this year, but I also know that the people who did ride it rank it pretty highly in their wood lineup. That there was some debate as to whether or not it is a wood coaster or a steel coaster. It's a wood coaster, and those people that rank it pretty highly amongst the wood coasters. So I think Goliath's got some real legs on it here, and I'm interested to see how deep it can go into this tournament in its first year, knowing that it had a late start on the season, too. Didn't open up until the middle of June.
Right, and again, we talked about this a little bit on the Steel Show as well. But I think that's a credit to our point tallying system. You have a lot of people who've ridden Viper, not a whole lot of people who have ridden Goliath. But because of the point system we use, it kind of removes that bias from the rides that a lot of people have ridden for the most part. So this is proof of that you don't have to be a coaster that everyone's ridden to do well in this contest, and Goliath is proving that here. And, this next matchup here, we're proving again, you don't have to have a lot of riders or, to make the bracket and do well. We've got Balder from Liseberg over there in Sweden. The Intamin plug-and-play, kind of a first-generation El Toro, a bit smaller, a bit more compact, but lots of airtime from the videos we see and from everything we hear. Going up against White Lightning, one of great coasters, most recent coasters here in the United States, down there at Fun Spot America in Orlando. A nice little fun-sized wooden roller coaster, a nice family wooden roller coaster, one that you and I have both been on recently, too. I mean, I rode it in November. You rode it in October, I believe.
Well, December. So December.
Okay.
Yeah, so December I took a trip down to Disney, rode White Lightning. A lot of fun, that ride. One that kind of surprised me, one that doesn't really, shoot up my list or anything. It wasn't like a world beater to me, but definitely one that I really enjoyed. And Balder's a ride I've never even been on, so I'm really curious to see what happens here.
Right, and White Lightning is a sentimental favorite for me as well, being my 400th roller coaster back when I went down to IAAPA in November. So kind of got a soft spot in my heart for White Lightning, but unfortunately, for me anyways, and the sentimental part here, it is Balder who comes out on top here. And I'll tell you what, this is one that had the contest submissions. This one really split the vote here. Some people picking Balder, other people picking White Lightning. So this is one that I think people had trouble with. This is one that really challenged some people, but it is Balder going on to face Goliath in the second round.
Nice.
So now we're gonna go to one of the several heavy hitter matchups that was in this side of the wood bracket. Ravine Flyer 2 from Waldemere in Erie, Pennsylvania against Boulder Dash from Lake Compounce in Bristol, Connecticut. Two small parks, two coasters built by the Custom Coasters group. Obviously, Boulder Dash was built by Custom Coasters. Ravine Flyer was then built by the same engineering team when they formed the Gravity Group. Two terrain riding wooden coasters. So lots of similarities between these two. Boulder Dash was the winner 2 years ago and came in third last year. Some people thinking Ravine Flyer might have the mustard to finally beat it out, but it is Boulder Dash coming in ahead of Ravine Flyer 2 on this one. And I think you mentioned that this is one that you picked wrong because you're not as big of a fan of Boulder Dash as a lot of other people, but this is one that you had wrong.
I'll be honest with you. I picked Ravine Flyer here, but I'm not a fan of either of these two coasters. That if I had one matchup in both sides of the tournament, wood and steel, for both rides to lose, it would be this one. I'm not a huge fan of Boulder Dash. Ravine Flyer to me is a poor man's voyage, so neither of these two rides really excite me, although both of them I know have a huge following. People love Ravine Flyer. People love Boulder Dash. I don't get it personally. I don't understand it. They just seem like coasters to me. I do think Ravine Flyer is the better of the two. Because of a poor man's voyage is still pretty good, in the overall scheme of things. Boulder Dash, I don't get it. It boggles my mind why people like that ride, but hey.
Well, I put both of these coasters in my top 7, I believe, on my wood coaster list. I think I have Ravine Flyer at 7 and Boulder Dash at number 3, so I do put both of these coasters very high on my personal list. So Boulder Dash moving on, but not going to have an easy time. It's got to face the winner of the Comet from The Great Escape up there, Lake George, New York. Queensbury, I think technically is the town name, but it's right by Lake George. Six Flags Park up there. The former Crystal Beach Comet relocated in the mid-90s, saved it from the wrecking ball, going up against Vodon Timber Coaster, another GCI coaster, and a Europa-Park coaster that we hear great things about from great coasters. Now, who did you pick for this one? Because this is like old school classic wooden roller coaster against new school twister type roller coaster here.
I went with Wodan in this one just because I feel that the Europa's on this swing up, that people who went there really love the Europa coasters, and I don't know how many people have been on Comet, so I went with Wodan. I haven't been on either. Yeah. I really don't know much about either, so this was like a crapshoot, and I kind of went with Europa over Great Escape.
Well, it is Vodon Timber Coaster that comes out on top. I have been on the Great Escape Comet, and it reminds me of a little bit of the Phoenix at Knoebels. Not quite as much airtime, but close. A double out and back layout, has a similar layout, but Vodon Timber Coaster coming out on top here. So a European coaster getting the nod here over an American coaster. So Riverview Park region, we're in the second round here, the Sweet 16. We've got Goliath going up against Boulder and Boulder Dash going up against Vodon Timber Coaster. Two really exciting matchups. All right, so now we're moving on to the Cypress Gardens region. And I think of any of the regions of the 8 in these two brackets, I think if you had to pick a region of death, this might be the one. I mean, look at this here. We've got so many longtime favorites here. We've got Voyage, we've got Phoenix, we've got Thunderhead, we've got El Toro, we've got Prowler. Just an absolute. We've got the Coney Island Cyclone here, sentimental favorite. We've got Grand National, a European favorite. We've got so many tough ones here, starting with Voyage and Phoenix. These are my personal top 2 wooden roller coasters, and they're going up against each other in the first round. Voyage as my number 1, Phoenix as my number 2. Two coasters that you put towards the top of your wood coaster list as well. And, this goes back to what we were saying back in the Steel Show. It doesn't always have to do with how good of a coaster you are. It goes about who you're playing. And one of these two coasters who, have been perennial top 10 coasters, top 5 in some polls, one of them is going out in the first round just because they're playing another stupendous roller coaster. And you know what? It's the Voyage that knocks off the Phoenix. I mean, I like my Knoebels, and I love my Phoenix. And, if there's one roller coaster on the wood side of things that I like more than Phoenix, it's Voyage. When Voyage is running, well, it's probably the best wooden roller coaster, maybe the best roller coaster in the world altogether. And it is Voyage that comes out on top of Phoenix here.
And what's interesting for me is that, I've said it many times, I'm not a huge wood coaster fan, but a lot of the wood coasters in this bracket right here could rank on an overall list of wood and steel for me. Voyage and Phoenix are 2 of those. That both Voyage would definitely be a top 5 roller coaster if I'd put them together. Phoenix would probably be somewhere in the top 10 as well. So these 2 rides are really fantastic. I agree with you. Voyage is the superior ride in this case. That Voyage, the airtime on that ride doesn't quit from start to stop, and it does things that you would not even think a roller coaster can do. That is the epitome of what a wooden coaster is. I've heard it called a religious experience. Maybe I'll hear it called a champion by the end of this.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, Voyage, either one of those, really the type of coaster that could go all the way. I think if you were to say you have to pick one coaster that you marathon for the rest of your life, I think I'd probably pick Phoenix to marathon one. But if you say you get one ride on one roller coaster in the entire world left and that's it, I think the Voyage might be the one you pick for one final ride. Phoenix might be the one that you pick to marathon. Yeah. Now, I think if you were to compare the 2.
Here's a question. The last 2 years, who's won the wood pole?
The last 2 years, I mentioned it in the Riverview Park region. We had Boulder Dash win 2 years ago, and Outlaw Run won last year.
Okay.
Voyage came in second both years. So Voyage did jump Boulder Dash last year, but Outlaw Run then came out on top of it in its first year. So now we've got Voyage, Outlaw Run's on the other side of the bracket. So now Voyage has gotten by Phoenix, but now it's got some other ones just in this region that it may not be able to get by, depending on how the votes went. Before it may not even get a chance to see Outlaw Run. Who knows?
Well, I got news for you. Voyage on my bracket is the champion this year, so it'll be a first-time champion.
You have Voyage going all the way.
I got Voyage going all the way in this one, so I'm very excited to see if it can make it. This is a tough bracket. If it can make it out of this bracket, I think it's got a cakewalk to the championship.
All right, well, there you go. So now Thunderhead from Dollywood, the great coaster from Dollywood, going up against the Coney Island Cyclone, Luna Park there in Brooklyn, New York. And I don't think this was a very tough one for most people. It is Thunderhead coming out on top here. The Cyclone, nice to see it in the bracket, but I think when it got put in this bracket, and it might have had a chance at winning a match or two in one of the other regions, but going up against Thunderhead's just too tough, and it's been a favorite for a decade now. Thunderhead comes out on top, and Thunderhead's the better coaster in this case. And, Thunderhead, maybe it has an outside shot to take down Voyage. A lot of people really like Thunderhead. Depending on how the votes went, maybe there were a few people who didn't like the roughness of Voyage. So we'll have to see Voyage and Thunderhead in the second round. That's another intriguing matchup. Like you said, another tough one for the Voyage to try and get through.
For sure. This matchup, I'm not a huge fan of Thunderhead myself. Cyclone I've never been on, but I do think I would like Thunderhead better than Cyclone. So, like you said, nice sentimentality there with Cyclone in here, but Thunderhead, obviously a perennial favorite amongst most enthusiasts. That one's going to move on here. And I think Voyage going to have a nice little matchup in the next round. I don't see Thunderhead being able to top the Voyage in the Elite Eight as well.
Right. There we go. So now moving on, we've got Grand National, one of only a few Mobius coasters in the world. They're Blackpool Pleasure Beach in England, going up against El Toro, the big gun from Six Flags Great Adventure, the Intamin plug-and-play here. And, Andy, would you be shocked if I told you that Grand National knocked off El Toro?
I would be shocked. I would be absolutely shocked to see El Toro go down in this first round. El Toro, in my top 3 wood coasters, definitely would be in my combined list. I would be absolutely shocked.
Well, no need to be shocked. It is El Toro coming out on top of Great Adventure. I think we scared a few people there. Because I'll tell you this, there's a lot of people who have El Toro as their overall winner. And most of those people had it beating the Voyage. Looking a few rounds down the road here, El Toro kind of on a collision course with the Voyage if they can win their respective second round matchups. But boy, I'll tell you what, if Voyage could beat Phoenix, Thunderhead, and El Toro, I think it kind of deserves to be in the Final Four. But El Toro's got to win another match. They both have to win in the next round still. So let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Let's not look ahead too far here either.
For sure.
Because you know what, we have another one of your favorites here in this next one between Zippin' Pippin at Bay Beach in Green Bay, Wisconsin, against one of your favorites, the Prowler, at Worlds of Fun in Kansas City. And again, Prowler is one that I really enjoyed. It's a great coaster. Not in my top 5. I think it's in your top 5. Oh, yeah. It's not quite as high on my list, but Prowler is one that you're a very big fan of, and one that obviously has done pretty well in our poll in the last couple of years. And it is Prowler that goes ahead and knocks off Zippin' Pippin. So now Prowler has a really tough task going up against El Toro in the second round. It's a real shame that, Voyage, Thunderhead, El Toro, and Prowler, would you say that right there could be a Final Four in itself?
Oh, absolutely. If you were to put Outlaw Run in this bracket, you would have my top 5 roller coasters, my top 5 wood roller coasters in this bracket. You got Voyage, El Toro, Phoenix, and Prowler all on my top 5. The only one not there is Outlaw Run, but Outlaw Run is going to be on the other side of the bracket, so I'm interested to see what happens there as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, boy, I'll tell you what. We had a couple of tough ones there just in the first round. And, now the second round, you got another set of tough ones. Voyage against Thunderhead and El Toro against Prowler. And this is the Cypress Gardens region, correct?
Yes.
So, this is – wow. Wow, what a region. Tip of the cap to anyone who could get this entire region right. But we'll see. Lots of people who actually did have these first 4 correct. So we'll see how they end up going in the next round.
For sure.
All right, so we're halfway through the 2015 COASTER-net.com Thrilling 32 Bracket Challenge on the wood side of things. We're heading over to the Europa-Park region now, and we've got a battle of 2 custom coasters, woodies, from their heyday. We've got Shivering Timbers, the absolutely monstrous out-and-back coaster at Michigan's Adventure, chock full of airtime, against a ride that really focuses on lateral forces with some airtime thrown in, the Legend at Holiday World. And I'll tell you what, if there was one matchup in this bracket that I think had people split the most, I think it was this one. The selections were almost 50-50. I think slightly more people picked Legend over Shivering Timbers, but this is one that really split the audience, I think, one that people had a real tough time deciding on. Who did you have in this one before I let it loose here?
I love both these rides. I love Shivering Timbers. I love the Legend.
I know you do. I do too.
I had to give my edge to Shivering Timbers just because of the massive nature of it. That Legend's a great ride, but Shivering Timbers is just one step above. So I gave it to Shivering Timbers, and I'm curious to see because I don't know how many people have been out to Michigan's Adventure.
Yeah, it's one of those where, this point tabulation system comes into play here, where we like to remove that bias of the less ridden coasters to try and put it on a more level playing field. I personally have Shivering Timbers, I think, is my number 8 wood coaster, and Legend is just a few spots below it at number 11. But it is Shivering Timbers that comes out on top of the Legend. And, I want to say maybe the track work that's been done the last couple of years on Shivering Timbers to kind of smooth out some of the rough spots, maybe that made a difference here and kind of gave it the edge, because these are 2 coasters that are very, very evenly matched.
For sure. Like I'm glad that Shivering Timbers won. I think it's I think it should have won there. But I don't want to discredit the Legend because that is a fun ride too. And I'm looking forward to riding it at night because that could move it up my list too because I've never ridden it at night before.
Yeah, absolutely. And going back, Voyage, I think same thing there. It can't go any higher on your list, but it could solidify it maybe. And we always hear about how you got to ride the Raven at night too. We're going to get to the Raven shortly here. So Shivering Timbers is moving on. Going to play the winner of the Wooden Warrior at Quasi Amusement Park in Middlebury, Connecticut from the Gravity Group. Going up against Lightning Racer's Lightning Track from Hershey Park in Pennsylvania from Great Coasters. And, Wooden Warrior is one that is kind of a personal favorite to me because you don't hear about that a whole lot. Wooden Warrior and now Rorosaurus are 2 great rides. I haven't been on Rorosaurus, but people say it's better than Wooden Warrior. It's small parks, so you don't get a whole lot of people getting out to them. Lightning Racer, one that almost everyone who voted in the poll has ridden, so a lot of people have ridden it. But a lot of people say that Wooden Warrior might be a little bit better. In this case, though, Lightning Racer does come out on top. The Lightning Track does advance, so we'll see Shivering Timbers take on the Lightning Track of Lightning Racer. Lightning, typically the one that people point to as the better of the 2 tracks. We'll see how the Thunder Track does here in the last region, but Lightning is moving on.
Both these rides, fine rides in my opinion. Both of them not really outstanding on my overall list. I probably think Lightning Racer is the better of the two.
Yeah, I think it just comes down to maybe size and stature a little bit. Wooden Warrior is a great coaster, but I think at the end of the day, I think it's not big enough, it's not long enough, it's not fast enough. It's certainly intense enough, and certainly has the fun of all your big coasters. But its size just not quite enough in this case.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on here in the Wallem Park region, we've got the defending champion, Outlaw Run from Silver Dollar City, one of the most daring double-barrel rolling wooden coasters, as they call it down there at the park. They love their coaster down there in Branson, going up against the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk's Giant Dipper. So I think this might be one of the best examples, alongside Goliath and Viper back earlier in the bracket. This is a great example of classic versus new school technology. We've got the old school Giant Dipper, 1920s, the golden age of wooden roller coasters, against Outlaw Run, one of the newest, the baddest, the most technologically advanced wooden roller coasters out there in the world right now. And I mean, I'm assuming you had Outlaw Run on this one, right? I mean, you were talking about this earlier.
No question. This was a no contest for me at all. Outlaw Run should run away with this one in my book.
Yes, and Outlaw Run does run away with it in this case. Outlaw Run off to a good start in defending its title from last year, knocks off the Giant Dipper, and again, the poor Californians here. We talked about it on the Steel Show how their coasters aren't doing so hot over there in the steel side of things, and another California coaster getting knocked out here. But it is to the defending champion, so they can take some solace in the fact that they didn't lose to a rinky-dink coaster.
You may be seeing the smile on my face growing right now, because we're almost at that time.
Because if you have the bracket in front of you, you've probably taken notice of the next one here. And Andy is just really ready here because we've got the Beast from Kings Island going up against Renegade from Valley Fair. And we've talked about the point tabulation method and how we like to remove that bias from the lesser ridden coasters, which Renegade falls under that category of a coaster that a lot of people have not ridden. And the Beast, would you say, might be one of the most legendary, most talked about wooden coasters in the world? And you said during the selection show a few weeks ago, you want to see the Beast get taken out by Renegade. You want to see some new blood.
Well,
No pun intended.
you nailed it right on the head. The Beast is a legend, and it's all talk. There's nothing to it. It's just going a straight line out into the forest. So I can't wait. Oh, man, I'm chomping at the bit right now to see the upstart Renegade finally knock off the Beast. And I want to see all the Ohioans with the tears in their eyes streaming down their face when their beloved, legendary, all-talk Beast finally gets a taste of reality and goes down in the first round.
Well, if you're finished,
I think I am.
I would like to reveal the winner now. Are you ready, Mr. Rivarchik?
I'm ready.
He's crossing his fingers. And in one of the narrowest matchups in the history of the bracket, it is the Beast from Kings Island advancing to the next round, knocks off Renegade from Valley Fair. The Beast is going on to take on Outlaw Run.
Oh, that's terrible. But the one solace I have, the one thing that I can look forward to is now Outlaw Run is going to destroy the Beast in the second round. And then I finally get it. The Ohioans with the tears in their eyes streaming down when Outlaw Run beats the Beast.
Well, you know that we had a lot of Ohio people voting in this poll, so I don't know if I'd be counting my chickens just yet if I were you. We'll have to see how the Beast ends up doing against Outlaw Run. I tell you what, we've got two good matchups here. We've got Shivering Timbers going up against the Lightning Track of Lightning Racer, and then Outlaw Run and the Beast here in the Wallen-Park region. Maybe not quite as heavy as the last region, but certainly a couple of good coasters. In the running here for this region. And the last region here in the wood side of things of the Thrilling 32 Bracket Challenge, the first round matchups here, we've got the Long Beach Pike region. And, Andy, you and I were talking about this bracket before we started the show tonight. We talked about the region of death. If there was really a light region, this might be the one. You've got some kind of oddball coasters that you don't hear a whole lot about in this one. You got a couple of newer ones in here. So, this is really going to be interesting to see which coaster kind of comes out of this region. I think if you're going to see a Cinderella, you might see it come out of this region because there doesn't really, the other three brackets, it seems that there's at least one of those perennial favorites that you always see at the top of the polls. This region doesn't really have that one, I don't think. I mean, maybe Raven, but that was years ago before a lot of these bigger ones started being built. So I don't know, maybe the Raven, makes a run here. But we're starting off with American Thunder, Six Flags St. Louis, GCI coaster, against the coaster from P&E Playland in Vancouver, British Columbia, one that very few people have ridden. Very few people have even heard about this one. And, but the people who have ridden it say it's a really good coaster. And you have American Thunder there, which is one that a reasonable amount of people have ridden. It's right there in the middle of the country in Six Flags St. Louis. Who did you have for this one? Because this is one that almost everybody picked American Thunder. I mean, this is one where there was a very definitive favorite, at least among the people who were picking.
And for me, I am not an American Thunder fan, and I've never been on coaster at P&E Playland, so I actually picked the coaster as my dark horse in this one and said, you know what, I'm going to move it forward because I think it's going to upset American Thunder. I just have a feeling in my gut. I have a gut feeling. There's really no factual basis behind it. I just had a feeling when I looked at this matchup, I said, you know what, because it's such a light bracket, I can take a few risks on my bracket, and I took a risk here with coaster.
Well, I'll tell you what, your risk paid off and your gut was correct. The coaster at P&E Playland gets a victory here for the Canadian. You don't hear about the wooden coasters up there in Canada. This is one that people forget about, and a lot of people don't even know about. But American Thunder, I mean, this is one that a lot of people had winning 2 or 3 matchups maybe, and it goes down in the first round. So maybe a couple of wooden coaster brackets busted here. I mean, I will say this. There were a couple people who had 15 of the 16 wooden coaster matchups in the first round correct, this one being the only one that they had wrong. So, maybe a little bit of a shocker here and maybe a sign of things to come in this bracket. And, getting down to the next one here, we have Raven from Holiday World, an old-time favorite, a classic wooden coaster if there ever was one, and certainly another legendary wooden coaster going up against the other side of Lightning Racer, the Thunder Track. And the Thunder Track not meeting the same fate here as the Lightning Track. It is the Raven that comes out on top here. So now we get to the next round here and we see Raven, which is kind of one of those rides that is always talked about and is always talked about as one of the better wooden coasters in the country, going up against the coaster from P&E, which people know almost nothing about. People probably wouldn't even recognize it in a photograph if you showed it to them, maybe. Yeah. And it's interesting because here's the thing. A lot of people picking American Thunder and then had American Thunder and Raven going against each other. And a lot of people of that group having American Thunder advancing. So with that out now, maybe you don't know what to think here, even though your bracket's already submitted. Maybe you're kind of rooting for the coaster now because maybe that's one that people didn't pick.
Yeah, for sure. Like that, this one, I think I think Coaster moving on is going to mess up a lot of brackets here. Not my bracket, but a lot of people's brackets.
Right. Do you have any thoughts on Raven going ahead? I mean, I think even though Lightning Racer is a good ride, I think the Raven is one that most people felt pretty comfortable with. I think a lot of people did pick that one.
Raven is in my top 15. Raven is one of my favorite wood coasters. I love it out there. I love the what's interesting about Raven is the first ride I had on it wasn't really that impressed. It wasn't until subsequent rides, after riding it like 3 or 4 times in a row, that the beauty of it started really coming out to me. And what's interesting about that is the same thing happened to me with Voyage. I kind of had the disappointment with Voyage, and then I rode it a number of times after that, and I really started to really feel it and really love it. So both those rides, slow starts for me, but really are among my favorites today.
Yeah, I think Raven is one of those that you have to ride in the back seat to really get the full blow of it. And, people say you got to ride it at night. We talked about that a little bit ago with the Legends. So, you and I will get to do that at the end of May. With some luck, we'll get to pull this off. So, the fifth hill in the back seat of Raven is just absolutely unbelievable. Mm-hmm. So getting down to the last two here, and the poor Californians again. They finally know that they're going to get a victory somewhere, and it comes at the expense of knocking off another one. Gold Striker at California's Great America, one that I rode this past summer and absolutely raved about. And then Apocalypse down there at Six Flags Magic Mountain, 2 GCI coasters in California. And this is one, you've been on Apocalypse. I've been on both. I put Gold Striker higher. Who did you pick for this one?
I picked Gold Striker, being that the big buzz out of California is that Gold Striker is the better of the 2 rides. I rode Apocalypse, I liked it, didn't have a super high opinion of it. So I figured if people were indeed riding Gold Striker, that they probably ranked it pretty highly. So I put, even though I've ridden Apocalypse when it was Terminator Salvation, I still made Gold Striker move on in this one.
All right, well, it is Gold Striker that takes the victory and knocks out Apocalypse. And Gold Striker is billed as the best wooden roller coaster in California. It says it on a big billboard at the front of the park, and that holds true here this year anyways. Gold Striker is the best wooden roller coaster in California, and it's moving on to the second round. And it's going to take on the winner of 2 very, very hard to get to coasters. Tremors at Silverwood Theme Park in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and Kentucky Rumbler at Beach Bend down there in Kentucky. And you know what? 2 roller coasters that you always hear good stories about, but when you ask someone, have you been on Tremors or have you been on Kentucky Rumbler, they almost always say no. I mean, very few people riding both of these coasters. More proof that you don't have to have a lot of riders to get into this bracket. And one of them is moving on to the next round, and kind of goes back to that idea of this maybe being a slightly weaker bracket. And, this is one that really split the decisions as well in the poll, in the bracket challenge. A lot of people picking Tremors. A lot of people picking Kentucky Rumbler as well. A very split decision here. Who did you have?
For this one, I haven't ridden both of them. It was basically a coin toss, and I liked the name Tremors better than Kentucky Rumbler, and so Tremors went on for me.
Well, that's good enough for me. And, people rave about Kentucky Rumbler, but it is Tremors that goes on and knocks out. I would almost call this a slight upset. I think more people were expecting Kentucky Rumbler to win this one than Tremors. But Tremors is one of those custom coasters that they did towards the end of their time. And Kentucky Rumbler, one of the middle-aged GCI coasters. But Tremors going on. So, kind of the GCI region, with American Thunder, Lightning Racer, Gold Striker, Apocalypse, and Kentucky Rumbler, only one of the 5 GCI coasters getting out of that first round, and that was from the matchup where there were GCI versus GCI. So we see GCI versus old school CCI in the second round with Gold Striker and Tremors. So we've got the PNE coaster against the Raven and Gold Striker going up against Tremors to wrap up the Long Beach Pike region. So that does it for the Thrilling 32, the first round here. We're down to our Sweet 16. What are your thoughts on how things panned out here in the first round, Danny?
For the most part, I thought the steel bracket had a few more real shockers in it. Maverick going down to Manta still is a mind-boggler to me. I still can't get over this concept. I think the wood bracket was a little bit more straightforward. We saw a few upsets, but I still think your major players are still involved in it. So until we start seeing one of those major players fall out, the wood bracket is still pretty standard. The steel bracket, though, I think there's some interesting stuff going on there too.
Yeah, I think so. And I think in this wooden bracket, I think we really saw one side of the bracket heavily loaded with big favorites. So I think that those first two regions that we went through tonight, I think you're going to see the heavy hitters start to fall a little sooner over there. Whereas I think on this later side of the bracket with the Wallen Park and Long Beach Pike region, I think there's only a couple of ones that really stick out in that half of the bracket. And I think those are going to be the ones that you're going to have a little bit easier time getting through to the Final Four. And, now that we've kind of gone through the first round, I think you have a pretty good idea maybe of where these coasters are going to fall. So that's going to wrap it up for tonight here with the Thrilling 32, the wood bracket side of things here. We've got it down to our Sweet 16. If you haven't watched the Steel Show yet, make sure you watch the Steel Show. That's going to be dropping around the same time as this one does. We're recording them on the same night. Keep updated. We will be releasing these videos as we get through the weeks, going through the March Madness timeline here, and you can either, put the little green check mark next to your choices, or you can light it on fire and throw it in the trash can and hopefully properly dispose of your busted brackets. We certainly don't hope that your brackets are busted after this first show, but hopefully your choice is still in it. And we want to thank everyone who not only voted in the poll, but who is taking part in the contest. We've got some great prizes for you guys, whoever our big winner is. We've got the COASTER-net Uncut t-shirt. We've got an appearance, special guest appearance on COASTER-net Uncut. And Andy, you talked about it on the Steel Show, but we've also got, if you're a member on the COASTER-net forums, you will also get a standard club membership as well?
A free standard club membership that will get you a discount to a number of different parks. Included would be things like Holiday World, places that maybe even Kentucky Kingdom, I think. So places that you might not have a pass to, that you would actually need a discount to save a little money here or there.
Absolutely. So we know you guys are going to be excited to get all of those goodies right there as well. So that's going to wrap it up for tonight. As always, I'm Danny Miller from Rochester, New York.
And I'm Andy Robarchuk from Chicago, Illinois. Right on, Ride Warriors.
See you next time.